All right, here we go. It's a beautiful day. It really truly is a beautiful day. Uh, get your steps in because it's getting cold again. Uh, but get your steps in. Vitamin D is good for you, a little fresh air, and it's amazing how it'll reset your nervous system. All right, so today, I won't lie, it'll probably be a quick hitter for you. Um, we'll keep you moving this morning. I will have a bit more of a robust update for you in 2 weeks, where I'll give you a little bit more of a macroeconomic update when we look at the first 2 months of the year. But it'll be a quick hitter today. Cool. All right, sweet. Love it. Mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspectives. Um, one of the things I'd touch on, because she's a great example of it, is to build careers worth having, businesses worth owning, lives worth living, experiences worth giving, and legacies worth leaving. I think I got everything out of my system that I needed to last week. But last week at North Shore Awards, we announced that Sheriff Reed will be retiring at the end of March after 40 years of service to the industry. And Sheriff Reed's been an incredible member of our community for the last 5 years, helping keep people out of jail, being a steady voice and a steady hand. But I just wanted to, I'm kind of layering this message out to our organization now that it's a bit more public. And I got my feelings out last week for Sheriff Reed, so I can keep it together on a Tuesday for you. But just wanted to make you guys aware that Sheriff Reed will be retiring, and we're starting to phase her uh, out as we've been transitioning Ashley, the Admiral, into her role on the compliance team. And I'm incredibly grateful for Joni's service to our organization for the last 5 years. So there, I got through that. Joni knows I love her because I could barely get through it last week. All right, just as a reminder, we have year-end reporting that you should have all received all profit share statements, all 1099 statements, all of your expense reports, deduction reports, contribution reports, whatever it might be. Look for it from KLRW972 at kw.com. There would have been a Google Drive shared to every single individual. Questions on it, feel free to reach out to Jen Turner or Jen Church. All right, quick educational and events updates for you. First, I'm hitting on this because I think it's one of the most exceptional things from an industry standard of what you can put in your RAS. The RAS system, in terms of what you're listening to, where you're getting information, and learning outside the echo chamber that is southeastern Wisconsin around exceptional opportunities when you're in the car, you want to listen to things. The Millionaire Real Estate Agent podcast, I think, has been an exceptional addition to the KW platform. And this week's conversation on the MREA podcast is the simple equation for a profitable team. Many are interested in understanding that, and so feel free to check that out. February training calendar is out. Just a few things to point out coming up in the month of February. We are finishing agent awards this week. We have Southwest today, and then we have Lake Country on Thursday. And then, as a reminder, next week there's about 55 people that will be down in Atlanta for family reunion. So there's no team meeting on Tuesday the 24th. And then on Thursday, the 26th, be on the lookout for Magnolia's Tax Lunch and Learn at the North Shore at 11:30 on Thursday, the 26th. Always one of the most highly sought after things that we do in terms of how do I think about my tax preparation and how do I think about my future in terms of what it is that I need to do in order to structure my organization appropriately to not overpay Uncle Sam. One thing I did want to point out to the group, just as a reminder, we have our YouTube channel that is robust with content. Just looking at it this morning, we have uploaded 582 videos to the platform, and everything is locally driven. So it's not national in focus, everything is locally focused. A couple things I wanted to point out to remind the group from a YouTube perspective. Every team meeting after the 9 a.m. team meeting, we take the recording and place it out there in case you want to listen to it back or there was something that you wanted to pick up on. Feel free to you can access that via the YouTube channel. And then last week, Kathleen hosted MLS Rapid Stats and how do you integrate AI with Rapid Stats to be the economist of choice in your market. And so she delivered that last week, Tuesday at 10:30, and we uploaded that training to the YouTube channel as well. More so as a reminder that anything that we have within our training calendar, we always try to record it to upload it to the YouTube channel for you to be able to play back later if there was something that you missed or something that was said that you wanted to go back and repeat too. But check it out. And then as a reminder, there's no team meeting next week, Tuesday, the 24th, because there is a large group of us that will be down in Atlanta for the family reunion lineup. Now, for those that are attending family reunion, be on the lookout for something that will be forthcoming likely today. We have a local know before you go. And what this entails is everyone from our local organization in southeastern Wisconsin who will be attending, you will have the opportunity to see from a roster perspective who is on there. We have a local WhatsApp group. You want to understand what breakout groups people are going to, meet up for happy hours, grab lunch. It's a way for the collective group to communicate with each other. And if you don't want to participate, it's a great way to mute it. WhatsApp has a lot more functional features than just a large group setting. They can be overrun quickly. And then also as a reminder, there's a schedule that we created for our KW local organization. Sunday night at 5 p.m. we'll be hosting the local KW Milwaukee happy hour in downtown Atlanta. So look for those details. And then we have 5 individuals from the Milwaukee area that will be participating on panels. So shout out to the Speranzas, Emily Walzak, Amanda Schroeder, Mark Smith, and Katie Ninkovic, who will be participating on panels at Family Reunion next week. So for those that plan on attending, be on the lookout for that forthcoming later today. All right, on March 9th at the Zufari Conference Center from 3 to 5 p.m., we'll be hosting another edition of Opportunity Knox, a great way if you're interested in joining a team, want to learn about teams, or you're thinking about starting a team, or you run a team seeking talent. What we're trying to do is create a speed dating, speed networking opportunity for you to identify what is it that teams offer, either from a competitive standpoint in terms of talent attraction and talent retention. Where is talent and how do I find talent? Or if you are talent, you're seeking opportunity, there's a great opportunity for you to participate March 9th at the Zufari Conference Center, as we'll have roughly 20 to 30 teams there that are seeking a variety of different roles, everything from showing agent partners to buyer's agents to administrative support. So if you're interested in something of the sort, we encourage you to sign up March 9th at the Zufari Conference Center. All right, with that, I'm flipping it over to Courtney, who has an update all around the Community Pulse magazine. Court.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, the Community Pulse, I mentioned 2 meetings ago that those would be in the office and they should be in your office now. So a reminder of what these include. We did a little refresh from last year to this year, but we have stats from 6 different counties. We added in some local favorite spots that were recommended by a bunch of different agents. And then some vendor spotlights. So trying to highlight some of our amazing partners that are in our vendor program. These magazines would be perfect for clients, whether they're looking to relocate to a different area within Wisconsin or they just settled somewhere, if they just bought a house in Whitefish Bay. We have recommendations of coffee shops, breweries, florists, different things in there so that they can get out and explore what's in their community where they maybe just purchased their house or are looking to purchase their house. So something new this year that we are trying to do is update this quarterly and get more information from you to be able to refresh different hidden gems or spots that you guys like to go to so that we can keep it fresh. We'll keep the stats up to date with the rolling 12-month calendar and just try to make it a good asset for you guys to be able to use with your clients. The ones in office, just a note, we're hoping those stay in office so that agents can come in and look at those. If you're looking to either get a physical copy or a virtual copy of your own, just go through the marketing concierge and place that order or email myself, Bella, or Allie.
Love it. Courtney, thanks for the quick update. Community Pulse magazine, great way for you guys to customize and to showcase to your clients. And just in terms of how do you become the economist of choice of locally what's going on within our industry, but also how do you showcase some highlights within southeastern Wisconsin?
And then just quickly to add that, you might see email coming from myself. We are going to start gathering some more information for our Q2, which is hopefully going to be coming out mid-May. So we'll have more spring to do things within the area. So if you do see that Google form or form of some sort coming from me, if you could fill that out, we would greatly appreciate that.
Sweet. Thanks, Courtney. All right. With the sheriff retiring, we have the lieutenant on this morning to give us a compliance update. Steph, what do these guys need to know around the bump clause?
Hi, good morning, guys. Yeah, the compliance team just has a few things this morning. Mostly wanted to talk about the bump clause. This came up a few times last week, which is actually pretty awesome, I thought, because people are thinking outside the box, and that's exactly what the bump clause is for. So traditionally, the bump clause, as you guys know, is typically attached to the closing of the buyer's property contingency, right? So back in 2020, when there were a bunch of revisions to the offer, the bump clause was decoupled from that home close contingency for use elsewhere. So the seller may consider adding a bump clause when there are unusual contingencies from the buyer, or perhaps less desirable terms. Because again, the benefit for using a bump clause is the ability to keep the listing active on MLS, in order to increase the likelihood of receiving secondary offers. So again, the bump clause could be used as like a win-win for both the buyer and seller if there are kind of like off-the-wall contingencies that a buyer is using. So I just wanted to show some examples of that. Next slide, Charlie. So this came up, I think, a couple years ago. So there was a pretty dilapidated home that was on the market, ripe for a flipper, but it just wasn't moving. I think it was maybe overpriced, but a buyer wished to make an offer on it, but wanted to get their ducks in a row, and they wanted to get estimates and have a 2-week period to obtain estimates for to see if they were going to fall in budget, fall in line with what they could spend on this home. But again, they wanted to make it contingent in case it did fall over, and they wanted to exit the deal in the event that these estimates were too much. The seller was okay with accepting this, but they were hesitant to lose more time in the market. So the listing agent suggested adding a bump clause. So seller was able to keep the home on the market for 2 weeks while the buyer did their homework, obtaining estimates. In the event that seller were to receive a secondary offer, they could come to that primary buyer and bump them, or attempt to bump them. And then at that point, the buyer could decide, all right, you know what, I will move forward with this home, with this transaction, or no, we have discovered that these estimates are too much. We're going to go out and let the secondary buyer move forward. So again, it's just kind of these weird contingencies that a seller might be hesitant on accepting, but the bump clause could be used to make it more appealing. So another example that just came to us last week, which shout out to Lori Flatt. Next slide, Charlie. There was a buyer who wanted to have an extended closing date. I think it was beyond 3 or 4 months. And they were kind of sticking their heels in the ground and not budging on that. The seller didn't want to agree, but they don't have any other options at the time. So Lori came to me and asked if we could use a bump clause in this scenario. And again, seller could keep marketing their home. And if a secondary came along, the seller could go to that primary and say, I want you to move up that closing date now, otherwise we're going to ask you to exit the deal. So I just thought it was a great idea. And then what this looks like on the contract, next slide. So again, if that bump clause is enacted, typically it's that 72-hour deadline. So in the case of Lori last week, if the buyer was going to waive the contingency, that buyer had to agree to move the closing date up. So on line 345, we're just spelling it right out. The buyer's going to agree to move the closing date up. Buyer and seller agree to execute an amendment changing that close date. In my first example, on line 339, it would just literally look like a written waiver of that contingency to obtain those estimates. So again, this is outside of that home close contingency and used as a win-win for all. So keep that in your toolbox. And then just a reminder for paperwork required for a for sale by owner transaction. So in the event we are working with a seller on a for sale by owner transaction, that seller has become our customer in this transaction. So there is paperwork required for them, even though they are not our client. So we still need to have them sign that WRA disclosure to customers. That's found in zip forms, of course. And then the seller also has to sign our KW specific disclosures. So that KW Milwaukee disclosure and then our KW affiliated business disclosure. So that is required for sellers as well in the transaction. So just a reminder on that. And then next up, Sentry Guard lockbox reminder. So the GMAR wants us to drive this home to you guys. They're sitting on a bunch of lockboxes that they need to get rid of. So please stop into the office to pick them up. If you can email Sharon at gmar.com to set up a time. Usually she just needs a 24-hour notice as a heads up, and then you can just stop in. And they feel like a big hang up for you guys is that there's a perception that they might be charging for old unreturned lock boxes. That is not the case. So if you don't have your old supply, don't worry, just go on into the office and they'll give you a new supply. And then lastly, so yes, as we're trying to kind of get Ashley more established in terms of signing paperwork, so if there's anything for North Shore agents specifically, if there's anything that is required of a broker's signature, typically that's just referral forms. Please make it a habit to be sending them to Ashley now at this point. So that's ashley.meyer@kw.com. And then for real last, we've got the compliance helpline phone number up here. Please put this in your contacts. The compliance helpline is your first line of defense for contract questions or transaction questions. So you're going to call that number first. And then one of us will be able to help you in a timely manner. Thanks, Charlie.
Sweet. Thanks, Steph. All right, I'm going to jump into some quick market commentary. First, I want to address one thing that I've seen on social media quite a bit, more so on Twitter than anywhere else, is there's a really interesting graph, and I meant to include it, but I forgot, that shows home affordability at its peak. And the question is there a crash coming within the housing market? It's getting a lot of legs on Twitter. My professional opinion, I think Twitter is fast and loose of people who sell doom and gloom. Okay. I don't believe there to be any macro data within southeastern Wisconsin that would support such a claim. And I want you to be armed with the information as to how to address it in the event that you have clients who might ask you about it. And the reason why I address it in this way is demographics are completely in our favor. Okay. And I'm just going to reiterate a few things that I shared with you in early January. Last year, the average age of a first-time homebuyer was 38. Over the last 15 years, that's up nearly 10 years over what it used to be. It used to be 28, now it's 38. The largest demographic in the U.S. labor force is 25 to 35. And so when you consider people need to be gainfully employed, which the unemployment numbers are effectively gainfully employed, right around 4%. And the largest demographic in the U.S. labor force is 25 to 35. And the average age of a first-time homebuyer in 2025 was 38 years old. I have a hard time believing that as that demographic is coming into maturity from a standpoint of the ability to be able to buy homes, I have a hard time seeing that a crash would be forthcoming. I don't disregard the data as it shows, because affordability of housing, as you might have felt, is still there's a lot of pain points, and I'm sure we'll learn a lot more about that from Ruben next week at Family Reunion as it relates to some relief. And there's some more policy discussion being had as to how do you create relief to some of the affordability issues. But I've seen this data a lot, and I just wanted to be like, I have a hard time seeing it based on the demographics and where the demand lies and where it's going. So that's my personal opinion. I could be totally wrong. I mean, it's a total guess, but I just wanted to address it so that you guys had the information as it relates to why I'm so bullish on what the next 3 to 5 years looks like within our industry. So more to come on that. I'll address more of that next week as we get some more of the macro data from a family reunion perspective. And I always kind of give you guys the recap from that. But I had just seen it a lot over the last 4 to 5 days. I wanted to make sure that I armed you with at least a few talking points as to why I don't believe that to be the case at this point in time. Now, having said that, usually I hit you guys with a lot of data. And I'm going to share with you just a few things, and then I'm going to shift gears. So this is on a weekly basis, more so for you guys to understand what does the inventory look like? Look, we need new inventory in order for deal activity to be occurring. We've talked a lot about the mortgage application index being sky high and demand being high. So what does that mean in southeastern Wisconsin? Well, we need more new inventory for more deals to be had. Okay. This is on a weekly basis. I'm not going to recap in a big way this week as it relates to the data, but just wanted you to understand that there's some really positive signs happening within our industry, despite the fact that what the media reported last week, that January was down 10%. Yes, that's true. January was rather soft as a total industry, but we're climbing out of it. Okay. When you look at it from a units going under contract perspective, what's interesting here is new units coming onto the market are almost equal to the units that are going under contract over the last, especially 2 weeks. So we're trading 1-for-1 inventory, which is why you're feeling the pressure from a demand standpoint in terms of the activity and the level of competition within the marketplace in southeastern Wisconsin. This is the sales absorption rate on a weekly basis. You can see 9.6% is the highest it had been over the latest 24 weeks, going back to September 1 of 2025. Sales absorption is the percentage of inventory that goes under contract in any given week. I track this on a weekly basis because it helps us understand the demand forces at play and how they're interacting with the new inventory that's coming to the market. So as you see sales absorption rates starting to spike, and we see at 9.6% last week, it was the highest it had been over the last 24 weeks, tells me there is an insatiable appetite to the demand factors at play as it relates to the new inventory coming to the market. Again, going back to my original comment around this Twitter graph that I saw, as I'm like, we'd be seeing more in the data that would tell us that there'd be softness would be showing up, and that's not what we're seeing. The other interesting thing that's at play here, and I've been hammering for like 18 months as it relates to expired listings and reminding you guys from a listing perspective, like sharpen your pencils as it relates to pricing, communicate, right-size seller expectations as it relates to the value of their property. What we've actually interestingly seen since the first of the year is expired inventory has really softened in it. And that's a good thing for listing agents. We had talked, and if you just look over the latest 24 weeks, going back to September 1 of 2025, you can see how elevated that expired inventory was over periods of time. The spike you saw is always what happens at the end of the year, as most listing contracts end December 31st. But when you look at it on a weekly basis of seeing like 82, 101, 153, 91, and then you compare it to what we saw in September and October of consistent expired inventory of roughly around 150 units a week, again, also indicates to me that strong demand, inventory, and velocity of rate of sale has picked up. And as I kind of challenged you guys 2 weeks ago in terms of it's go time, I was helping you understand that you're in go time as it relates to your lead activities and what will show up in 90 days in the future. And that while you might have felt a soft January, should not indicate how you should be acting from a sense of urgency or expectation standpoint. And so I share with you some of this data to help you understand that like the market's really healthy. It got off to a slow start. I think a lot of it had to do with timing. I shared with you as it relates to, I think we lost 2 weeks, and don't lose sight of your lead activities in terms of your lead generation, your people-focused approach, because all of that's going to show up this spring. And for those of us that attended the Milwaukee Business Journal event with Dr. Lawrence Yoon, who's the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors on Friday, he even believed that while he acknowledged some softness in January, that they expect due to the rate environment and the demand metrics that he's seeing and the demographics at play, that he believes that March, April timeframe will make up for what could have been a softer January, February. So that's why I've kind of created this sense of urgency with you around this opportunity of go time, go time, go time. So I wanted to provide you a quick update for you because I know, as I've experienced and talked to many of you, of just, okay, January, what does this mean? What does it mean? Don't freak out. Stay the course, continue your activities, and all will be fine. All the data tells us that. Now, I want to shift gears slightly because I've been on this theme and trying to get you guys to think, because look, in January, here's the truth. I have to get you to be inspired to do your job so that your activities show up 90 days later as it relates to your income. And so sometimes there isn't a lot to report on in the month of January and February because I'm trying to help you think forward thinking, forward thinking, forward thinking, and what you do today shows up 90 days later. And it should be no shock to any of you that I am a consumer of sport, okay? Because I love the art of competition. Love it. And as I shared with you, for those of you who've been around for a while, my extreme love for the Olympics. I think the Olympics provides an incredible opportunity of reflection for us as it relates to how we operate our businesses. And so I curated a list of questions for you because I think the Olympics are one of those sports that, like, look, it's not the NFL, it's not the NBA. These guys aren't making millions of dollars. Most of them train for 8 to 10 years for one moment of opportunity that typically lasts 90 seconds. And how do you show up in that 90 seconds when it's time for, think about it like a listing appointment. Like the average seller sells every 5 to 8 years. The average consumer only transacts 3 times in their lifetime. You are preparing yourselves for the moment when someone finally raises their hand and welcomes you into their home and then greets you and says, here is where I've lived for the last 20 years, right? You are always prepping for that moment, not dissimilar to most Olympic athletes are, because the moments when they show up are few and far between, and most people only have those moments maybe 2 to 3 times within their lifetime. And so as I've been watching the Olympics with my kids, and last night we were glued to the TV watching everything from downhill skiing to curling to everything else, here are my questions for the group as it relates to what is the information that you're taking in and how do you learn from it so when the moment shows up that someone calls you to list their house, that you're prepared for that moment. Here are my list of questions for you as it relates to the lessons in the Winter Olympics. Are you paying attention to the storylines? Because there are stories of excellence, and there are stories of perseverance. And there are stories of heartbreak for people who have spent their entire life training for one moment. And are you seeing the stories of first time something that has happened? Are you seeing the first medals that are won for a country that never believed it was possible and the person had to find their own inspiration because it never existed before? Have you noticed families celebrating with their kids and siblings? Powerful moments of people lifting each other up. Right? Have you seen the amplitude and speed in which these people operate? Have you noticed their grit and determination? Have you seen people finish an event completely exhausted? How have you seen what sport can teach you? How have you seen what people around the world have prepared 4+ years to show you? And can you appreciate the hard work in quiet places for years without notice that lead to all of this? Your jobs are not much dissimilar than the Winter Olympics. They aren't. You're prepping for the one moment you have where someone invites you into your home. Those moments are few and far between. And there's exceptional lessons to be learned from the Winter Olympics. And I remind you of this as you sit at home and watch the Olympics. Pay attention to the storylines, look for excellence, talk about stories of perseverance. Pay attention to stories of heartbreak, and when things don't go right, how do people course correct in order to finish their race? Pay attention to the first time something is happening or a country has won something for the first time. Notice people celebrating each other. Have you seen the amplitude and speed, the grit and determination, and people who finish events completely exhausted? Sport can teach you a ton. And I'd make the argument that our industry is more similar to the Olympics than any other sport you could possibly think of, because you're preparing for moments during times when people aren't paying attention and in quiet places for years. And without notice, all of a sudden you achieve something or accomplish something. Stay the course, stay focused. The industry is healthy. All the data will tell us that. We're going down to family reunion next week. I'll provide you more context upon our return, and we look forward to continuing to help you crush in 2026. Guys, thanks for showing up.